Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, just yesterday, we did this video right here. Thank you for everyone who geeked out on that, about a rather terse letter that was sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi by Representative Andrew Clyde and many other members of Congress saying, hey, this is what Congress intended when we basically dropped in the big beautiful bill a lot of these NFA items down to $0 taxation. We also meant there would be zero registration. We also mentioned that there were two pending lawsuits, and the letter specifically had asked, or in some ways demanded, that the Attorney General actually enforce this position in litigation, which would benefit many of us in the 2A community because it would remove short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, suppressors, and any other weapon from the purview altogether of the NFA. Well, timing is everything, isn't it? Because then today, we get a motion for summary judgment in one of those two matters. We're going to go through that because this could potentially be the beginning of the end. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about, will this case spell the end of the NFA? Okay, America, like I said, timing is everything. I will tell you that I think this just happened to coincide. Maybe there's some coordinated efforts. We are going to be talking about the matter of Jensen versus ATF. That is one of two challenges that was brought against the NFA the minute several items were then reduced down to a $0 taxation. This case is brought to us by our good friends over at Second Amendment Foundation, the Citizens Committee on the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, and the Firearms Policy Coalition, which means there are links for all three down below in the description box for you to show them some love. Now, what do we get today? In Jensen versus ATF, we get a motion for summary judgment. And it would not shock me if in the other case we have, Silencer Shop versus ATF, we get a very similar motion from the good folks over at GOA. What exactly is a summary judgment? Well, that actually comes under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 56. The rule itself reads, a party may move for summary judgment identifying each claim or defense or the part of each claim or defense on which summary judgment is sought. The court shall grant summary judgment if the movant shows there is no genuine dispute as to any material fact and the movant is entitled to judgment as a matter of law. Put other ways, it's a motion where you basically say, hey, judge, just look at our pleadings. Take a look at what the operative facts are. There are no dispute about that. Take a look at what the applicable law is. There is no dispute. And when you do all that, you realize, hey, we win. So go ahead and grant us the win now so we don't have to go through all of the shenanigans involved with going to trial and making a record and going through discovery and all of that. Now, interestingly, this motion for summary judgment does not reference at all the letter from Representative Clyde, which again leads me to believe that this was obviously in the working for some time. It's not like you crank one of these motions out in a couple of hours. But there is a lot of arguments. This is a very thorough motion for summary judgment. And some of the arguments include the following. The taxing clause under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. The Commerce Clause under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. The Necessary and Proper Clause under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, and of course, the Second Amendment. Now, if I went through some of those clauses that were previously mentioned, you guys would immediately turn this video off and say, my God, Washington Gun Law is the most boring channel ever. What we are going to do, though, is we are going to highlight just some of the arguments that are being made here by the petitioners in support of their motion for summary judgment, which includes the following. The NFA's regulation on untaxed firearms exceeds Congress's constitutional authority. And again, this all goes back to the Senzinski case and how the NFA was upheld because it was a method of tax record keeping. Now that we're not having to keep tax records on it, why do we need all the other paperwork? The petitioners also argue the NFA's regulation of untaxed firearms exceeds Congress's taxing power. Because ultimately, if you're not taxing these items, there is no reason for tax enforcement, right? In addition to those arguments, they also argue the NFA's regulation of untaxed firearms cannot be justified as an exercise of any of Congress's enumerated powers. And that is especially true now that these items are no longer subject to any type of taxation, because the entire purpose of the NFA and all of the record keepings was what? That's right, it was all about tax law enforcement. Now, what about that great catch-all that seems to always suck up everything that Congress gets their hands on? Well, the petitioners argue the NFA's regulation of untaxed firearms exceeds Congress's Commerce Clause powers. Why do you say? Well, according to the petitioners, the NFA's regulation of untaxed firearms cannot be justified as a regulation on the channels or instrumentalities of interstate commerce. Further, the NFA's regulation on untaxed firearms cannot be justified as a regulation of activities that substantially affect interstate commerce. And of course, when we go back and we take a look at the whole reason they set up the NFA altogether, it really had nothing to do with regulating interstate commerce. As the petitioners point out, the challenged NFA provisions were not enacted with the purpose of regulating interstate commerce. No, actually, they were designed to regulate taxation. And with the fact that there is no taxation, is this truly economic activity that warrants additional congressional oversight or regulation beyond what we already have in the 4473, as the petitioners put it? The challenge NFA provisions are not part of a comprehensive regulation of quintessentially economic activity. And then, of course, if the NFA cannot stand on the taxation grounds, which it clearly cannot, then the only way government could justify all of these extra registration requirements would be under a Second Amendment analysis, which means they're going to have to establish that there is some historical tradition of regulating common firearms in this manner, which leads the petitioners to make the following arguments. The NFA's regulation of suppressors and short-barrel rifles violates the Second Amendment. Suppressors and short-barrel rifles are clearly covered by the Second Amendment's plain text. Suppressors and short-barrel rifles are not dangerous and unusual weapons, and there is no historical tradition of requiring the registration of protected arms. And that is the quintessential question here, is if these are in fact protected arms, which they are, is there any historical tradition of mandating registration of them, which there is not? Also leading the petitioners to argue that, hey, when it comes to these particular types of weapons, suppressors and short-barrel rifles are in common use. Nor are they dangerous and unusual, which means on a purely Second Amendment textual analysis, the NFA cannot survive standing on those grounds alone. Without the taxation hook into it, there really is no constitutional, nor legal, nor congressional authority to regulate firearms in this manner. This is a big opportunity here if the Department of Justice really wants to carry out congressional intent, that they could in fact concede this issue. Okay, the case once again is Jensen versus ATF. The motion for summary judgment is linked up down below, so you don't have to take our word for it. You can geek out on it for yourself. We will obviously very carefully keep our eyes on this case. And as I mentioned, I do expect a similar motion for summary judgment any day now in the silencer shop case that GOA is handling. Now listen, if you got any questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now, but if you don't, that's okay. That information's down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should do around here, cool, tell us all about it. Click on that link to do so. If you want to subscribe to the monthly newsletter, that link is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.
First individual on call, and for whatever reason, if that goes through, we have actually 3 layers. So we have another and another. So if it continues to ring, it goes from one phone to the next to the next. So we're betting on our chances. The highly compensated team that we have is going to take that phone call. And then from there, they have that privilege, right? They have the attorney-client privilege and that right to share with them, our attorneys, of what just took place. We have a nationwide team of attorneys that's going to be able to reach out to our Arizona attorney to get them on the horn immediately. You know, we've had cases all over the country. Now,
You're not truly prepared unless you have Right to Bear back you. You will always get an attorney-answered hotline, so you will always have a confidential phone call. There are no cap limits for either civil or criminal defense. This covers all forms of self-defense. So from a fist to a firearm, from a fat lip to a dead body, you are covered, and you will have some of the nation's most passionate 2A attorneys in your corner fighting for you. And right now, if you visit my friends at protectwithbear.com and you use the promo code WGL, you will receive 10% off. Listen, you need to protect yourself so that you can protect them. Visit my good friends at protectwithbear.com.